Have you ever wondered what it would feel like if nobody's words or actions could ever make you lose your cool? Picture yourself moving through every situation with steady composure, never rattled by the hustle and bustle around you. It almost seems like a superpower, right? Yet, learning to command your emotions is not just for a select few. In truth, anyone can develop this ability with patience and practice. Today, let's explore how to free ourselves from anger or annoyance, no matter who we are dealing with or what scenario arises. The key is realizing that we have the power to choose how we feel. Instead of letting others' negative words take over, we can pause, breathe deeply, and decide to stay calm. This outlook comes from believing that your happiness is in your hands, not someone else's. Once you learn this approach, you won't be tossed around by every stressful moment. Remember, changing how you react is not a quick trick. It requires everyday effort. Yet by staying mindful of your inner peace, you can stand firm against any emotional storm. Embrace this mindset, and you will discover a life guided by your own steady choices. Keep going. The power of emotional detachment. Break the chain of reaction. Emotional detachment is a way of looking at our feelings from a distance, almost like watching a movie instead of being in it. When we practice this, we don't pretend our emotions aren't there or try to shove them away. Instead, we notice them without letting them control us. In many Buddhist teachings, we learn that strong emotions, such as anger, often happen because we cling too tightly to certain outcomes or feel personally attacked when someone says something hurtful. This sense of attachment makes us believe that another person's words or actions directly define us, which can cause our reactions to flare up without warning. But if we can remember that those emotions are just passing experiences, we can pause before we explode. We can simply observe the uncomfortable feelings and allow them to move on, much like clouds drifting across the sky. Think about a time when someone upset you with a cruel comment. Your first instinct might have been to shout back or defend yourself. That's normal, because we humans often feel threatened when people say mean things. But emotional detachment encourages a different approach. Rather than jumping into a heated argument right away, you can slow down, breathe, and take a mental step back. Ask yourself, why am I feeling so upset? Is it because I believe their words or because I'm afraid of something? By recognizing what you're feeling, anger, sadness, or maybe embarrassment, you set the stage for letting those emotions pass through you without attaching to them. Once you identify the feeling, imagine it as a cloud. Clouds appear in the sky, they float across, and then they disappear. You don't chase clouds or hold on to them. You watch them come and go. The same goes for your emotions. They are temporary visitors in your mind, not permanent residents. By learning to observe an emotion without acting on it right away, you loosen its hold on you. This is a vital step in breaking the cycle that leads from a trigger, like a harsh word, to an extreme response, such as shouting or slamming a door. When you notice your emotions like a curious observer, you become free to choose how you respond next. It might sound simple, but it takes consistent practice. Many people grow up believing that emotions must always be shown on the outside as soon as they're felt on the inside. In reality, we have a choice. We can respond gently or firmly, or sometimes not at all. Let's say you're having a terrible day at school or work, and someone makes a rude remark. Instead of reacting in anger, you can pause and tell yourself, "That was hurtful, but I don't have to let it ruin my day." Then, breathe in and out slowly. Maybe close your eyes for a second and notice if your body feels tense or shaky. Observe what is happening in your mind. Is your heart pounding? Are your fists clenching? Recognizing these physical signals helps you stay aware of your internal state. As soon as you realize you're angry, you have the power to decide the next step. Could you respond calmly? Could you ask a question or simply walk away until you're ready to speak? There's no shame in taking a moment for yourself. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you never address problems or ignore disrespectful behavior. It simply means you no longer act on raw impulses. Instead, you choose your response based on what's truly helpful in the long run. By making this a habit, you stop adding extra fuel to the fire. You give yourself time to handle situations with clarity instead of letting your emotions take the wheel. This process of detachment becomes easier with practice. It's a bit like exercise. The more often you do it, the stronger you get. Start with small triggers first. For example, if you're stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off, your initial reaction might be to honk and scream. But try pausing for a moment to notice your anger building. Then think, I don't have to let this ruin my mood. This stranger's actions aren't worth my peace. Doing so doesn't make you weak. It makes you a person who chooses serenity over needless conflict. Over time, this skill will grow, and you'll find yourself able to handle bigger challenges without blowing up. Sometimes people worry that if they practice emotional detachment, they'll become cold or unfeeling. But that's not the case at all. You still feel emotions. You just don't allow them to toss you around like a paper boat in a storm. You remain the captain of your ship. You gain the ability to notice an emotional wave coming and steer yourself safely through it. You can still care deeply about others and show concern when it's needed, but your sense of calm will protect you from being overwhelmed. This balance between caring and detachment is key to a healthier mind. A useful tool to build emotional detachment is mindfulness. Mindfulness means paying close attention to what's happening right now without judging it. When you're mindful, you're fully present with your thoughts, surroundings, and feelings. For example, if you're washing dishes, you notice the warmth of the water, the sensation of the soap on your hands, and the sound of rushing water. If you're talking to a friend, you focus on their words, expressions, and emotions. The more you train your mind to stay present, the easier it becomes to notice when anger or frustration begins to surface. Another helpful tip is to practice slow, deep breathing whenever you feel a strong emotion brewing. Deep breathing activates the body's relaxation response, sending signals to your brain that it's safe to calm down. When you sense anger sneaking in, take a few long inhales and exhales. Feel your belly rise as you breathe in, and notice how it gently falls when you breathe out. This small technique can create enough space in your mind to pause before reacting. It's like hitting a reset button, allowing you to see the situation with fresh eyes. If you want to develop even stronger emotional detachment, journaling can be a great practice. Every day or whenever you feel upset, write down what happened and how you felt. Describe any physical sensations you experienced. Maybe your heart rate sped up or your cheeks grew hot. Then, note what you chose to do in response. Over time, you'll see patterns. Maybe you notice that certain topics or people trigger you more than others. Being aware of these triggers empowers you to prepare yourself in advance. You can decide to enter a conversation calmly, remind yourself of your commitment to keeping your peace, and even plan a gentle statement if things get tense. Meditation is another valuable tool. Spending even 5 to 10 minutes each day, sitting quietly and observing your thoughts, can train your mind to stay focused. You could picture a peaceful setting, like a sunny beach, and gently bring your attention back whenever you notice your thoughts wandering. Over time, you'll develop better control of your mental space. This doesn't mean you'll never feel anger again, but you'll be better at noticing it early and guiding it out of your system before it explodes. Remember that detaching from your emotions doesn't mean you're ignoring problems or refusing to communicate. If someone continually hurts you, it might be time to set boundaries or talk things out with them. Emotional detachment simply keeps you from being consumed by negative feelings. When you're not overwhelmed, you can deal with challenges more productively. For instance, if a friend says something unkind, you can calmly explain how their words made you feel, rather than yelling or storming out. By staying collected, you also encourage the other person to listen more carefully. They're less likely to become defensive if you're not on the attack. It might help to remember that everyone makes mistakes and says things they don't mean. People might say hurtful things because they're stressed, scared, or dealing with their own worries. This doesn't excuse mean behavior, but it can remind you that their words don't always reflect the truth about you. Practicing emotional detachment allows you to see a bigger picture. You realize that you are more than somebody's rude comment. You are a person capable of calm thinking and kind choices. Finally, be patient with yourself as you learn. Nobody transforms overnight, and you may still slip up when facing intense stress. If that happens, don't punish yourself or give up on trying to stay balanced. Notice what went wrong, reflect on how you reacted, and think about what you can do differently next time. Every moment is another chance to practice. Over weeks, months, and years, you'll gradually see that you bounce back from anger much faster, and that not everything triggers you like it once did. In the end, emotional detachment is about freedom. It frees you from the grip of anger, fear, or hurt that tries to take over your heart. It doesn't mean you never feel these emotions. It means you recognize them, welcome them, and let them pass without clinging. You stop seeing anger as your identity. Instead, you see yourself as someone who observes emotions with curiosity. Like clouds in a clear sky, they come and they go, and in between, you find peace. That peace allows you to stand strong even when life gets rough. When you embrace this practice, you open a door to a calmer, wiser version of yourself, ready to handle whatever comes your way. 2. Reprogram your mind. The what-if mindset. Shift our minds hold tremendous power, yet we sometimes let them wander down paths that make us feel more angry, hurt, or stressed. Imagine you're in a classroom or workplace and someone says something that seems insulting. Quickly, your mind might start asking, why would they say that? Do they think I'm not good enough? When these thoughts pop up, they often spiral into even stronger feelings of anger or frustration. This cycle of negative thinking can leave us feeling trapped, as if we have no other way to react. However, there is another path we can take, a path rooted in curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to see the bigger picture. In Buddhism, there is a teaching that reminds us, our thoughts don't have to control us. We can guide them in a healthier direction by using what some call the what-if mindset. Instead of letting anger grow, we shift to asking questions that help us learn and understand. For example, if someone criticizes you, it's easy to snap back or silently brood. But with the what-if method, you pause and say to yourself, what if this is a moment for me to grow? What if the person who spoke harshly is dealing with stress at home or is frustrated about something entirely different? These questions don't excuse rude behavior. Rather, they open a small door in your mind that allows new possibilities to enter. This space is where you can reflect before reacting. Let's dive deeper into why this approach can be so powerful. When anger arises, it usually clings to a specific story about what happened. That story might be, they criticized me, so they must be out to get me, or they think I'm not good enough. In truth, we can never be completely sure what's going on inside another person's head. They might be having a terrible day, or they might be struggling in ways we can't see. Even if they genuinely mean to be rude, it helps us more to stay calm than to let ourselves be rattled. The what-if questions give us a gentle push to look beyond our first interpretation. Maybe the real lesson is to strengthen our patience or to learn how to communicate better under pressure. Think of the what-if mindset as a tool you can use anywhere, at home, at school, with friends, or with co-workers. For instance, suppose your friend cancels plans at the last minute. Initially, you might feel hurt or angry. They don't respect me or my time. But then, you remember your new way of thinking. You pause and ask, what if my friend had an emergency? Or, what if they are feeling overwhelmed and need support right now? This shift doesn't mean you ignore your feelings. You might still feel disappointed. However, you allow yourself to explore other angles, which can soothe your emotions and prevent a blow-up. You might send a calm text to your friend, asking if everything is okay. By doing this, you keep the door open for understanding rather than slamming it shut with anger. In many ways, the mind is like a computer that follows the program we install. If we fill it with thoughts like, everything is against me, or people are always trying to hurt me, we end up seeing the world as a harsh and unfriendly place. But when we practice the what-if questions, we change the code our mind runs on. Instead of always jumping to the worst-case scenario, we plant seeds of empathy and curiosity. Over time, we start to see more than just conflict. We see lessons, possibilities, and opportunities to grow. It's not about being naive or letting others walk all over us. It's about recognizing that our first emotional reaction isn't always the full story. This approach also helps us with self-awareness. Often, when someone's words make us angry, we're reacting not just to what was said in that moment, but also to memories of past hurts. Maybe you once felt embarrassed in front of a group, and now any slight criticism brings that same old pain rushing back. The what-if mindset encourages you to step back and ask, what if my reaction has more to do with my past feelings than what's happening right now? By identifying these hidden layers, you gain the power to address them. You might realize you need to work on self-confidence or heal from older wounds, and that realization can be an important step toward personal growth. A helpful practice is to write down your what-if questions when anger bubbles up. Let's say you keep a small journal or a note-taking app on your phone. The next time someone's words make you upset, pause and type out, what if this is a chance to understand them better? What if I can learn something about myself from this? Even if you still feel upset, the process of writing the question slows your emotional reaction and gives your rational mind time to catch up. You might notice you become calmer after just a few moments. Jotting down your thoughts also helps you track patterns in your emotional life. Over time, you might see that certain topics or people repeatedly trigger you, and you can then plan better ways to cope. Another way to practice the what-if mindset is to combine it with mindfulness. Mindfulness means paying attention to the present moment, your breath, your surroundings, and the sensations in your body. When anger arises, your heartbeat might speed up, your face may feel hot, or your shoulders could tense. Instead of labeling these things as bad, just notice them. Acknowledge that you're experiencing anger. Then bring in your what-if questions. For example, I feel anger right now. What if I sit with it instead of pushing it away or acting on it? By doing this, you transform your anger into a subject of curiosity rather than viewing it as an enemy. This gentle curiosity can lower the intensity of your anger and help you find a more balanced response. You can also think of the what-if mindset as a way of exercising empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. When someone behaves badly, our natural instinct might be to judge them or feel offended. But asking, what if they are struggling in ways I can't see, prompts us to consider their humanity. Maybe that person has received bad news, or they are under a lot of stress. This doesn't mean you have to accept insults or allow harmful behavior. Instead, It's about recognizing that everyone carries burdens. When we add empathy to our reactions, we reduce the chance that our response will be purely fueled by anger. We might still need to set boundaries or have a serious talk with the person, but we do so with greater calm and wisdom. Over time, the what-if mindset can help us handle challenges in a way that feels healthier and more peaceful. We grow more resilient because we aren't spinning into rage whenever something goes wrong. Life is full of surprises, some good, some not so good. If our default response to difficulties is always anger or fear, we can end up feeling exhausted. But by practicing curiosity and wonder, we shift our focus. We might still feel disappointment or sadness, but these emotions won't take over completely. We learn to hold them gently and look for the lessons hidden within them. Let's look at a practical example involving criticism. Imagine you present a project at school or work, and someone in the audience says, "This project is poorly planned. I don't like it at all." You feel your stomach tighten and your face get hot. Your immediate internal response might be, "They're so rude. They're insulting my work." Before you let that feeling ignite, pause and breathe. Slowly ask yourself, what if they have a valid point, even if they're not saying it kindly? What if I can use their feedback to improve my project? What if I explain my thinking more clearly and we end up having a valuable discussion? By adopting this mindset, you shift from feeling personally attacked to considering how you might benefit or learn. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. If the person is truly being mean or unfair, you can still calmly point out their tone or choose to address it later. However, you'll be addressing it from a steadier emotional base rather than exploding in anger. People often respond better when they sense you are open to dialogue, even if you disagree. The what-if mindset can turn confrontations into conversations where both sides might walk away with new insights. Practicing this mindset also offers a sense of freedom. Anger, when it festers, can be like a chain keeping you tethered to resentment and stress. By asking, "What if?" you unlock that chain. You begin to see that every situation, no matter how difficult, can teach you something useful about yourself, about others, or about life in general. Even if the lesson is simply learning to stay calm under fire, that's a valuable skill that will serve you in many areas of life. Of course, changing your usual thought patterns isn't easy. Habits develop over many years, and the habit of jumping to negative conclusions can feel as natural as breathing. But like any other skill, the what-if mindset gets stronger with practice. Start small. The next time you notice even a flicker of anger, maybe in a line at the grocery store or when someone interrupts you, try your new approach. Ask one what-if question. See how it changes your view of that moment. If you slip up and forget, don't be hard on yourself. Recognizing you slipped is already progress because it means you're aware that a different response is possible. In time, you might be surprised at how much calmer you feel in situations that used to make you furious. You'll find yourself pausing more often, considering different angles, and responding thoughtfully rather than on autopilot. You may even notice that people react more positively to you because calm energy often encourages others to be calm as well. By using the what-if mindset, you not only help yourself, but you also create a ripple effect of understanding in your daily interactions. Remember, anger isn't inherently bad. It can signal that something is wrong or needs attention, but it becomes harmful when we act on it without thinking. The what-if mindset helps us respect the signal that anger sends while not letting it overwhelm us. It guides us to solutions rather than to more chaos. Ultimately, this approach is about choosing growth over reactivity. It's about training the mind to stay curious and open, even when faced with conflict. By doing so, we transform negative energy into something that moves us forward. We become more patient, more empathetic, and more in control of our own well-being. The power of self-sovereignty. Own your emotional realm. Self-sovereignty is the idea that we each hold the key to our own emotional well-being. In simpler words, it means we get to decide how we feel, no matter what's happening around us. It's an important concept in Buddhism, where it is taught that no one can force an emotion on us unless we allow them. Even if people say hurtful things, we can choose our response. At first, this might seem strange. After all, we often feel like other people's words cause us to feel angry, sad, or upset. But when we take time to look deeper, we find that we have more power inside than we realized. Think about a time someone said something unkind to you. Maybe they teased you or blamed you for something that wasn't your fault. Naturally, you felt hurt or angry, but have you ever noticed that not everyone reacts the same way to the same words? One person might shrug it off, while another might cry. This difference shows that there is something inside each person, something about how they decide to handle the situation that creates how they feel. This is the foundation of self-sovereignty, realizing our reactions come from within rather than from outside forces. In Buddhism, this idea is often linked to the concept that life brings many challenges, yet our inner peace can remain steady. If you picture a lake, sometimes storms cause waves on the surface, yet deep below, it stays calm. In a similar way, we can learn to remain steady on the inside, even if the outside world feels stormy. Self-sovereignty teaches us that no matter how loud or harsh someone's words might be, we can keep our inner lake peaceful by choosing our response. This shift isn't always easy, but it offers lasting freedom from getting emotionally tossed around. To understand self-sovereignty, it helps to see that our thoughts play a major role in shaping our emotions. When someone is mean to us, our minds might start thinking, "They hate me," or "I must be worthless." These thoughts often lead us to feel anger or sadness. If we catch these thoughts early and remind ourselves that they are just one way of interpreting the situation, we begin to see we have other options. Maybe the person is stressed, or maybe their comment has nothing to do with our true worth. By choosing a calmer thought, we protect our emotional health. You might wonder, does this mean I can never be angry or upset? Not at all. Emotions are natural, and it's okay to feel them. The difference is that with self-sovereignty, you aren't handing over control of your feelings to another person. You can still acknowledge, "I feel anger right now," but instead of letting that anger take over, you pause. In that pause, you remember you have a choice. This is like having a remote control for your inner world. You decide what channel you watch instead of letting events or people press your buttons for you. When someone tries to upset you, it can help to visualize a force field around your heart and mind. Their negative words can bounce off that protective shield if you decide not to let them in. Of course, this doesn't mean ignoring every hurtful thing or allowing people to treat you poorly. Instead, it means you recognize that their words do not define you. You stay aware of your worth and choose how to respond. Maybe you decide to speak up calmly, telling them their words are hurtful, or perhaps you walk away to keep your peace. Either way, you remain in charge. Self-sovereignty also involves taking responsibility for our reactions. If we blame others for making us angry, we give away our power. We say, "I am helpless because of their behavior." But if we say, "I feel this emotion and I can choose how I deal with it," then we become strong. We no longer depend on other people to behave perfectly for us to be okay. Instead, we discover we can maintain our calm center regardless of what others say or do. This doesn't mean it's simple. Like any skill, it takes practice and patience to master our emotions. One helpful practice is to check in with your body when you start feeling upset. Notice if your shoulders are tense or if your heart is racing. Then take a few deep breaths. This gives you a moment to remember, I am the ruler of my emotional world. You might even say silently to yourself, I choose my response. A short pause can be enough to stop an automatic, angry outburst. Instead, you can decide if you want to respond gently, set a boundary, or simply let the moment pass. Try imagining that your mind is like a calm ocean and someone tosses a pebble of insult or annoyance at the surface. It may make a ripple, but it doesn't have to create a massive wave. The pebble alone cannot stir the entire ocean. It only touches the top layer unless we allow it to sink deeper. By practicing self-sovereignty, we minimize the impact of life's pebbles. We accept that we will feel the splash, but we don't have to let it shake our entire sense of peace. Another technique is to reflect on times when you stayed calm in the past. Maybe you remember a situation where someone was yelling and you somehow managed to remain steady. How did you feel afterward? Likely you felt proud, or at least relieved that you didn't get carried away by anger. Revisit that memory to encourage yourself. I have done this before, so I can do it again. We often forget these victories and only focus on times we lost our cool. But celebrating moments of self-control can strengthen our belief that we truly are in charge of our emotional life. Self-sovereignty does not mean becoming cold or emotionless. We can still care deeply about people and situations. The difference is that we choose how to direct our emotions rather than letting them run wild. If a friend is upset, we can offer them kindness and understanding without feeling pulled into their emotional turmoil. Our steadiness becomes a gift we can give, helping others feel safe and supported. When we stand firm in our own calmness, we might even inspire others to do the same. Sometimes, people worry that if they don't get upset, they are letting others walk all over them. But staying calm and being a doormat are two very different things. We can calmly stand up for ourselves, clarify misunderstandings, and set limits. Imagine a strong tree with deep roots. Even if the wind blows hard, it remains upright. That doesn't mean it ignores the wind. It simply means the tree is stable. In the same way, we can address problems without losing our peace. This stability often earns more respect than reacting with anger. In daily life, there are many small moments where you can practice self-sovereignty. Maybe your sibling takes the last cookie without asking, or a friend at school makes a joke about you in front of others. Notice your first urge. Maybe you want to snap or say something mean back. Then pause, take a breath and remember, I'm in control of how I feel. I can choose another way. This doesn't mean you approve of their actions, but you decide not to hand over your peace. Over time, these small acts of self-control add up, making you stronger and more confident. If you find it hard to stay calm, try writing down situations that trigger you. Afterward, write how you reacted and consider other ways you might have responded. You could also journal about times you remained in control. Write about what you did, how it felt, and what made it possible. This reflection helps your mind learn that you truly can be the ruler of your emotional world. As you build this habit, you will see more opportunities to pause and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting on autopilot. Meditation is another powerful tool that can help strengthen self-sovereignty. Taking just a few minutes each day to sit quietly and watch your breath can teach your mind to be still. You might notice thoughts fluttering in and out, like clouds passing in the sky. Instead of clinging to them, you practice letting them go. This skill can be used in real-life situations too. When anger or frustration arises, you can observe that feeling for a moment and let it move on, just like a cloud. You remain peaceful at the center, aware that you are more than any single emotion. An important reminder is that self-sovereignty is a journey. We don't suddenly become masters of our emotions overnight. There will be times when you slip up or lose your temper. There will be times when you slip up or lose your temper. Instead of beating yourself up, be kind to yourself. Think, I am learning. Next time I'll try again. Each challenge is an opportunity to practice. Over days, months, and years, you will notice a change in how you respond to life's ups and downs. Little by little, you'll see that people's words affect you less, and you recover faster from any bursts of anger or sadness. Finally, self-sovereignty is about recognizing that every person has their own emotional universe. We cannot control what others feel, but we can absolutely control ourselves. When you claim this freedom, you realize that nobody else can reach in and poke your heart unless you open the door. With this wisdom, you become like a calm lighthouse, shining steadily no matter how rough the waters outside might be. This inner strength leads to better relationships, clearer thinking, and more compassion for yourself and others. In the end, self-sovereignty is a path toward a life where you are no longer at the mercy of every harsh word or stressful situation. It doesn't mean you never feel strong emotions. Rather, you learn to hold those emotions gently, choosing whether to act on them or let them pass. By doing so, you remain true to yourself, keeping your peace and dignity intact. Embracing this practice transforms your world from a place where you feel pushed and pulled by others into one where you stand firmly on your own foundation. You become the calm in the storm, and from that place of steadiness, you can navigate life with greater wisdom and kindness. 3. The power of self-sovereignty. Own your emotional realm. Imagine you are the ruler of a small kingdom. Everything that happens inside your borders is under your care, and you decide how to run things. In the same way, self-sovereignty means you are the ruler of your emotional world. You get to choose how you feel, no matter what others say or do. This idea is a key part of certain Buddhist teachings, where people learn that our inner peace does not have to be destroyed by other people's words. Instead, we have the power to stay calm if we want to. Although this may seem difficult at first, understanding self-sovereignty can help you take back control of your feelings. When friends, family, or even strangers say or do hurtful things, it's easy to believe they are making you angry or sad. In reality, your feelings come from how you understand and react to what happened. This doesn't mean you ignore bad behavior or pretend that nothing hurts. It simply reminds you that your emotions do not have to be ruled by others. When someone teases you or says something nasty, you can picture a shield around you. This shield helps you remember that you have a choice in how to respond. Nobody else has the magic power to jump inside your mind and press buttons that control your mood, unless you give them permission. In daily life, it's easy to forget we have this choice. You might hear harsh words and instantly feel upset, as though you have no other option. But self-sovereignty suggests we always have the power to pause and ask ourselves, how do I really want to feel right now? If you believe you must get angry when someone is mean, that belief hands your emotional power to them. By choosing otherwise, you keep that power for yourself. This is not about never feeling anger or sadness again. Instead, it's about deciding when and how you experience those emotions, so that they serve you rather than control you. An example might help. Suppose you're playing a sport at school and a teammate shouts at you for missing a shot. Your first instinct might be to shout back or storm off, feeling ashamed. But try pausing for a moment and thinking, do I want to let their comment ruin my day, or can I keep going and do my best? This small pause can change everything. Maybe you still feel hurt, but you remind yourself that you are in charge of how you respond. You might decide to take a deep breath, focus on the next play, and talk to your teammate later about using kinder words. This choice reflects your self-sovereignty. Buddhism often teaches that our minds are like calm water beneath the surface of a busy river. Many currents swirl above, but deeper down, the water can remain still. It's the same with our emotions. Life might throw storms at us, people might yell, problems might arise, but deep within, we can keep our peace if we remember it's our choice. Of course, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice and patience. At times, you might slip and let anger get the best of you. That's okay. Every moment is a chance to learn and do better the next time. One of the greatest benefits of self-sovereignty is how freeing it feels. When you believe someone else can make you feel bad, you give away your inner power. But once you realize you can step back and decide how much an event will affect you, your world changes. Let's say a stranger bumps into you in the hallway and doesn't apologize. You might be tempted to feel angry right away. After all, they were rude. But what if you think, maybe they're in a hurry, or maybe they didn't notice me? This doesn't excuse the behavior, but it reminds you that you don't have to carry anger with you all day. You can choose a calmer response and move on. It's like being the captain of a ship. Sure, you can't stop the waves, but you can guide your boat in the best direction. Another helpful tip is to use I statements whenever you feel strong emotions rising. Instead of saying, "You're making me mad," try saying, "I feel upset." Notice how this shift puts ownership of the feeling back in your hands. You begin to see that the anger lives inside you and is not forced upon you. At first, this might seem small, but over time, it helps you remember that you're in charge of how you manage those feelings. Sometimes people ask, "Doesn't this mean I should let others treat me poorly?" Absolutely not. You can and should stand up for yourself if someone is genuinely being hurtful. The difference is that you do so from a place of calm control rather than from blind rage or hurt. Instead of lashing out, you might calmly say, "I don't appreciate that comment. Please stop." When you speak from self-sovereignty, you're more likely to be heard because you're not just reacting impulsively. You're choosing your words with clarity and confidence. To strengthen self-sovereignty, it helps to practice mindful breathing. Imagine you're standing in line somewhere and someone behind you starts complaining loudly. You feel your muscles tense. Take a slow, deep breath and notice the air moving in and out. With each exhale, let go of tension. Then remind yourself, "I'm in control of how I feel right now." This simple act can be repeated whenever you sense frustration building. Over time, mindful breathing becomes a habit, helping you stay aware of your power over your emotional responses. Journaling is another way to explore this idea. At the end of each day, write down moments when you felt your emotions were triggered. Ask yourself, how did I respond? Could I have paused and chosen a different response? This reflection will help you see patterns in your reactions. You might notice that certain topics, people, or places often cause you stress. With that knowledge, you can prepare yourself next time. Maybe you decide to practice a few deep breaths before seeing a difficult relative, or you remind yourself that you control your feelings before walking into a stressful situation at work. There's also a deeper layer to self-sovereignty. When you realize you don't have to be controlled by others' words or actions, you develop compassion for people who are still stuck in the cycle of reactivity. You may see someone yelling, slamming doors, and getting angry, and instead of judging them harshly, you might think, they haven't learned to guard their emotional world yet. This understanding can create empathy, which helps you treat them more gently. You might offer them a calm voice or a listening ear, instead of letting their anger fuel your own. Self-sovereignty does not mean you never feel strong emotions again. Anger, sadness, and fear are normal parts of being human. The key difference is that you stay aware. I am feeling anger right now, and I get to decide what I do with it. You can recognize your feelings without letting them rule you. Perhaps you still decide to speak out, set boundaries, or walk away, whatever the situation calls for. But you're doing it with intention, not because you think you have no other choice. Over time, you might notice that having this control makes you more confident. When people see that you remain calm under pressure, they may respect you more. Or, even if they don't, it won't shake your inner sense of peace. You know that you are the one who decides how to feel. This self-trust can spill over into other areas of your life, whether it's facing a challenge at school, dealing with conflict in friendships, or handling a tough job. You'll remember that no external situation can force you to feel anything. You always hold the final say. Think of self-sovereignty like learning to drive a car. When you're young, you're a passenger. If the driver takes a sharp turn, you get jerked around. But once you learn to drive, you have control over the direction, speed, and how smoothly you navigate the journey. People may honk at you or cut you off, but you can still steer safely. In the same way, you're always in the driver's seat of your emotions once you accept that you own them. Sure, there may be moments of confusion or frustration, but you'll become a better driver with practice. At the heart of this teaching is a profound sense of freedom. If you rely on everyone else to be nice before you can be happy, you might wait forever. But if you decide that your happiness depends on your own choices, then it becomes something you can shape every day. You realize that even if someone yells or tries to hurt you with words, you can keep your peace by not letting their negativity take over your thoughts. You learn to handle life's ups and downs with grace, knowing that your inner world belongs to you alone. In the end, self-sovereignty is about honoring the power you've always had. It's about waking up to the fact that no one else can truly get inside your mind and create feelings for you. Yes, people can influence you, but the final decision is yours. Practicing this idea may feel challenging, but each step you take, each time you pause, breathe, and remember you're in control, leads you toward greater emotional freedom. Over time, you'll notice that you bounce back faster from life's little and big troubles. You'll find more stability in tough times, and eventually, you'll stand like a lighthouse in a storm, calm and bright, guiding your own path forward. 4. Energy transmutation. Transform anger into high-vibration power. Imagine you're holding a spark in your hands. That spark can either grow into a wild, damaging fire or help power a bright light that guides you forward. Anger works in a similar way. When it flares up inside of us, it can burn wildly and harm our relationships or sense of peace if we let it. However, in many Buddhist teachings, we learn that anger does not have to be destructive. Instead, we can use this strong emotion like fuel, turning it into something that helps us rather than hurts us. This process is often called energy transmutation, and it's basically about redirecting anger so it raises us up instead of dragging us down. Understanding anger as energy. You might wonder, how is anger a type of energy? Think of a time you felt really mad. Maybe someone took your things without asking, or a friend said something hurtful. You might have felt your heart pound faster, your face get warm, or your muscles tense up. That rush you feel is your body's way of creating a burst of energy. If you were in a dangerous situation, that energy could help you defend yourself or escape. But in everyday life, we often don't need to fight or flee. Instead, the energy can get stuck inside us, making our mind race with upset thoughts. When that happens, anger starts to feel like a heavy weight. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that every emotion, even anger, can be transformed. The idea is to notice our feelings, accept them, and then decide what to do next. By treating anger as energy, we have the option to channel it into something that benefits us, like focusing on a goal, creating art, or solving a problem. It's like turning a rough wave in the ocean into a powerful current that pushes us forward. The first step, recognizing anger. Before we can transform anger, we need to notice it's there. Sometimes anger might show up as a small spark. Maybe we just feel annoyed for a moment. Other times it might seem like a raging fire that's hard to control. In either case, one of the first skills to learn is spotting the signs that you're getting mad. You might feel your hands clench or your breathing get faster. You might notice yourself thinking harsh thoughts, like wanting to yell or blame someone. When you sense anger coming up, pause for a moment and take a slow, deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Simply naming the emotion, I'm feeling angry, can help you calm down enough to choose a better path. This step is important because it's hard to redirect energy if you don't realize you have it. The second step, accepting the feeling. Once you recognize you're angry, you might be tempted to ignore it or try to shove it away. But pushing feelings down often makes them build up until they burst out later. Instead, try reminding yourself that feeling anger is okay. Emotions, including anger, are natural signals that something inside you needs attention. Perhaps you feel threatened, hurt, or misunderstood. Accepting your anger without judging it can actually help you gain control. It's like saying to yourself, yes, I'm upset right now, and it's all right to have this feeling. In Buddhism, people often practice mindfulness to accept their emotions. Mindfulness means staying aware of what's happening in the present moment without trying to change it or make it go away too quickly. For anger, you can sit quietly and notice where you feel it in your body. Is your chest tight? Are your shoulders tense? Take a few breaths and just observe. By looking at anger this way, you give yourself space to decide what to do next, rather than letting anger boss you around. The third step, redirecting the energy. Now comes the transmutation part, the process of taking the energy that anger brings and turning it into something higher or more positive. If you think of anger like steam, it can power an engine if we direct it correctly. How do we do that? One common method is to use that charged feeling as motivation. Maybe you've been putting off cleaning your room or finishing a project. Channel that fiery energy into getting things done. Tell yourself, I can use how I'm feeling to power me forward. Another approach is to get physically active. You could go for a run, practice yoga, dance, or even just do some jumping jacks. Physical movement helps move the rush of anger out of your body. You're giving that energy a healthy outlet so it doesn't build up inside. Afterward, you might feel calmer and clearer, with enough balance to address the situation that made you angry in the first place. Creativity is also a powerful tool for redirecting anger. If you enjoy drawing, painting, playing music, or writing, try pouring your feelings into your art. When you're angry, your mind is often bursting with energy and thoughts. This can make for a great spark of inspiration. You might write a story or poem about how you feel, or paint shapes and colors that represent your mood. When you create something from anger, you transform it into a form of expression that can lead to healing. The fourth step, reflecting and learning. After you've channeled your anger into some form of activity, take a moment to reflect on what happened. Ask yourself, what made me angry in the first place? How did I choose to handle it? This reflection is like checking a roadmap after you've traveled to see which routes worked and which ones didn't. Maybe you realize that your anger started because you felt disrespected. You might learn that setting clearer boundaries or communicating your feelings early on could prevent future issues. Reflection also helps you grow. Over time, you'll see patterns in your reactions. Perhaps you get upset most often when you're tired or stressed. Knowing this can help you plan better self-care. like getting enough sleep or taking breaks during busy days. You'll also notice how redirecting your anger changes the outcome. Instead of having regrets about losing your temper, you'll remember how you used your emotional energy to create something positive. Why this matters for your vibration. In many spiritual teachings, the word vibration refers to the overall level of energy we carry in our bodies and minds. When people talk about raising your vibration, they mean feeling and sharing more positive, uplifting energy. Anger, when it's allowed to boil, can drag us down, filling our minds with negative thoughts. By transforming anger into creativity, focus, or determination, we shift from a lower, heavier feeling to a higher, lighter one. Imagine you're climbing a staircase toward a brighter place. Each time you redirect anger into something productive or meaningful, you take another step up that staircase. You feel more in control, more at peace, and more prepared to handle whatever challenges come your way. This sense of self-control also boosts your confidence, since you realize anger doesn't have to run your life. Common misunderstandings. About anger. Some people think that using anger as fuel means pushing the emotion away entirely. That's not the case. You still acknowledge and feel your anger. You just choose not to let it explode or harm others. It's like taking a wild horse and guiding it gently. The horse is still strong, but you're the one steering. Another misunderstanding is that you're supposed to feel happy immediately. That might not happen. Anger can be intense, and it might take time to settle. The goal is not to instantly flip a switch to joy, but to guide that anger constructively. Others might worry that if they stop letting anger out in big bursts, they'll never address problems. In truth, addressing a situation calmly is usually more effective. When your head is clear, you can have honest conversations and set boundaries. You won't feel the need to lash out. Instead, you're able to speak your mind with confidence and fairness. This often leads to better results than yelling or letting anger rule the moment. Building a daily practice. Like any new skill, learning to transmute anger takes practice. Even if you read every book about turning negative emotions into positive ones, it won't help unless you try it in real life. Consider these steps to build a habit. 1. Check in. Often, throughout the day, pause to ask yourself how you're feeling. Notice any signs of anger before it grows too large. 2. Use breathing techniques. Try taking a few slow, deep breaths when you sense anger forming. This helps slow your heart rate and clear your mind. 3. Have a plan. Decide beforehand how you'd like to redirect anger. Will you exercise? Draw? Write in a journal? Knowing your plan makes it easier to follow through when you're actually upset. 4. Talk it out. Find a trusted friend, mentor, or family member to discuss your feelings with. Sometimes hearing your own words out loud helps you see new solutions. 5. Celebrate small wins. When you manage to turn your anger into something good, give yourself a pat on the back. Recognizing your progress encourages you to keep going. Real-life examples, sports and exercise. Many athletes use the energy from frustration to train harder. If you're angry about losing a game, you might channel that emotion into practicing your skills. Household chores. If something at home makes you mad, like your sibling taking your stuff, turn the energy into organizing your room or cleaning up a space. You'll burn off the tension and have something to show for it. Artistic projects. If you feel hurt or misunderstood, you could write a poem or create a painting that expresses your feelings. Even if no one else sees it, you've transformed anger into personal expression. School assignments. If anger flares up when you're criticized by a teacher or classmate, use it to focus harder on your assignments. Show yourself what you can achieve when you apply that extra push. Over time, using anger as a source of power helps you grow into a person who isn't easily thrown off course. You begin to see challenges not as reasons to feel bad, but as opportunities to push your life in a new direction. Rather than letting anger control you, you become the one who decides how to use its energy. This doesn't mean you'll never lose your temper again. We're all human and we slip up. But as you keep practicing, those moments will happen less often. You'll recover faster and notice that your anger no longer holds as much power over your mood. This transformation also improves your relationships. Friends and family will likely appreciate the calmness you bring to heated situations. By showing that you can handle upset feelings without lashing out, you set an example others might want to follow. You become a steady influence, proving that it's possible to go through tough emotions and still act with kindness and respect. Turning anger into a positive force is a skill that grows over time. It starts with recognizing anger for what it is, a burst of energy that you can decide how to use. By accepting that feeling and choosing to channel it into creativity, movement, or productivity, you avoid the damage anger often causes. You also lift your own mood, stepping toward a higher, brighter vibration where you feel more at peace. This practice doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending bad things never happen. Instead, it means making anger work for you instead of against you. So the next time you feel anger bubbling up, picture it like a strong wind. You can let it blow you off course, or you can adjust your sails and use that wind to speed ahead. With practice, you'll learn to guide that wind in a direction that benefits your life and the lives of those around you. That is the essence of energy transmutation, taking a powerful emotion and turning it into something that helps you shine brighter. By doing this regularly, you'll find that anger no longer drains you, but instead becomes a spark that fuels your best self forward. 5. The art of emotional alchemy, turning toxic energy into gold. Emotional alchemy is an idea drawn from Buddhist teachings, where painful or harmful emotions become stepping stones toward deeper self-awareness and personal growth. Picture an ancient alchemist working with dull, lifeless materials to create shimmering gold. That transformation captures the essence of emotional alchemy. We take negative feelings, such as anger or fear, and refine them until they yield wisdom, empathy, or clarity. Rather than judging ourselves whenever we feel upset, we view these energies as raw materials. In this way, we learn that emotions, however uncomfortable, can help us evolve as individuals. This process is empowering because it allows us to remain open to all our feelings without getting stuck in negativity. By acknowledging the presence of anger or frustration and working to shift it into compassion or insight, we reclaim our emotional power and deepen our understanding of ourselves. At the heart of emotional alchemy is the understanding that negative emotions are not enemies to be eliminated, but signals calling for our attention. For example, when anger shows up, it often indicates a boundary has been crossed or a value has been threatened. Rather than ignoring or pushing it away, we can welcome anger as a teacher. By asking questions such as, "What situation triggered this feeling?" or "Which personal need am I neglecting?" we transform what seemed like a destructive force into a catalyst for deeper insight. Through this lens, frustration becomes an invitation to investigate what matters to us. If we are willing to explore the roots of our anger, we often discover valuable lessons about our priorities, personal limits, and unspoken expectations. In this sense, each emotional challenge becomes a doorway to heightened self-awareness and healing. To practice emotional alchemy, we start by noticing our feelings as they arise, without labeling them as good or bad. This awareness serves as the foundation of transformation. Instead of escaping discomfort, we allow ourselves to sit with it and explore its source. Are we scared of losing something we love? Are we hurt because someone's words clashed with our self-image? By drilling down to the root cause, we can understand the deeper meaning behind our reactions. Once we grasp that meaning, the energy within anger or sorrow can be directed toward new perspectives or action. If anger signals a need for respect, for instance, we might use that energy to communicate our boundaries more clearly. In this way, the raw force of the emotion is converted into constructive steps that benefit us and those around us. Acceptance lies at the core of emotional alchemy. While it's tempting to bury feelings like anger or frustration, doing so often makes them resurface later with greater intensity. Buddhism encourages us to acknowledge each emotion as a natural part of being human. By recognizing their presence, we can gradually loosen the grip they have on us. This doesn't mean giving negative feelings free rein to control our words or actions. Rather, it involves observing them, understanding why they arise, and choosing a mindful response. Acceptance paves the way for transformation because it removes the resistance that often keeps negativity locked inside. When we stop fighting our emotions, they lose their power to overshadow our sense of well-being. We can then open the door to seeing what lessons they offer, and from that vantage point, begin the process of turning them into valuable insights. As we embrace emotional alchemy, asking targeted questions becomes a powerful tool for growth. In Buddhism, reflective inquiry is a way to peel back layers of assumption or habit. When anger flares up, take a moment to ask, what value is being challenged here? Perhaps you value kindness, yet you perceive someone's words as unkind. Or maybe you crave security and a situation feels threatening. Identifying the underlying need or belief at the core of your anger can shed light on why you're feeling this way. From there, you can decide how best to address it, whether by calmly sharing your perspective, setting boundaries, or adjusting your own expectations. By reframing the emotion as a signal instead of a punishment, you move from reacting blindly to responding with clarity. Over time, these small steps help reshape your relationship with all intense emotions. Patience is a vital part of emotional alchemy, since real transformation rarely happens overnight. When we encounter fear, sadness, or irritation, our instinct may be to make them vanish as quickly as possible. Yet true mastery involves holding these feelings and allowing their deeper messages to unfold. Sometimes this means sitting quietly, breathing mindfully, and observing the thoughts that bubble up. Other times it means seeking the perspective of a counselor or a trusted friend. The main point is to remain open to the full experience of the emotion without rushing to escape it. Over time, this approach helps dissolve the negative charge around difficult feelings. You begin to see them not as threats, but as teachers, guiding you toward better self-understanding and healthier choices. Every instance of skillfully handling frustration or grief strengthens the capacity to process future challenges with the same calm awareness. Ultimately, emotional alchemy invites us to embrace every feeling as part of our human experience. We no longer label certain emotions as purely negative or positive. Instead, we learn to work with them. The more we engage in this process, the more we realize that anger can lead to assertive action, sadness can deepen empathy, and fear can sharpen our awareness. This shift nurtures greater compassion for ourselves and others, since we understand that each of us carries emotional burdens and battles. Over time, these inner transformations radiate outward, improving our relationships and guiding us toward more mindful living. When we continually refine toxic energies into purposeful ones, we create a life rooted in balance and understanding. Each instance of practicing emotional alchemy builds upon the last, leading us step by step along a path of inner harmony. In this way, Buddhism's teachings on transformation become living wisdom within us. 6. Silence as power, the mastery of non-engagement. In our modern world, there's pressure to respond quickly to just about everything. We get texts, calls, and social media messages all day, and it feels like we must react right away, especially if someone says something that hurts us. But in Buddhism, there's a powerful idea that often goes against this urge: the power of silence. This doesn't mean we ignore all problems or never speak up for ourselves. Instead, it means recognizing that we don't have to engage with every provocation. Imagine someone hurling unkind words your way. Your first instinct might be to snap back. However, the practice of silence suggests pausing before responding or choosing not to respond at all if it won't be helpful. By learning when to stay silent, we protect our emotions and preserve our energy for what truly matters. This concept might sound passive at first, but silence is far from weakness. Think of it as a calm shield that stops negativity from entering your heart. When someone tries to upset you and you answer with anger, you risk becoming part of a heated exchange. It's like fanning the flames of a small fire, making it burn bigger. On the other hand, when you remain silent, you deny that fire the oxygen it needs to grow. Eventually, it dies down on its own. This peaceful approach is about choosing not to waste time and energy in battles that don't serve you. By practicing silence, you set a boundary that says, "I won't let harmful words or actions disturb my inner peace." This boundary keeps you grounded and helps you avoid regrettable outbursts later. Silence also gives you room to think. Often, when we're provoked, we respond without considering the possible consequences. Words said in anger can damage friendships or create tension at work or school. Then later, we regret what we've said. By pausing, even if it's just taking a deep breath and waiting a few seconds, you give your mind a chance to settle. During that brief moment, you can decide if it's worth speaking up or better to stay quiet. You might think, is this argument important enough to continue? Or, do I risk hurting someone with my words? Once we see the bigger picture, the power of silence becomes clear. We realize that it's often wiser to remain calm, collect our thoughts, and respond from a place of understanding rather than from heated emotion. Another reason silence is so powerful is that it helps you keep control of yourself. We can't control what others say or do, but we can control how we respond. When we argue or shout back in anger, we hand our emotional power to the other person. It's as if we're saying, "You can decide how I feel right now." Buddhism teaches that nobody should have that kind of power over us. By choosing to remain silent, you're telling yourself and others, "I am in charge of my reactions." That sense of self-control can bring a deep feeling of peace. You're no longer a victim of harsh words or stressful events. Instead, you become someone who responds with wisdom. In this way, silence is like a brake pedal that stops the cycle of negativity from running away with our emotions. It helps to imagine different real-life scenarios where silence can be helpful. Suppose you're in class and someone makes a rude remark about you. Your first reaction could be to fire back with an insult, but if you stay silent, you might notice the awkwardness that falls over the room. The other person's mean words don't get amplified by your own. Often people realize they've crossed a line when they're met with silence rather than a fight. Or think about a situation at home. A family member is angry and starts yelling. If you respond with equal anger, the shouting might escalate. But by keeping quiet, you allow that person's anger to fade more quickly. Later, when emotions have cooled, you can discuss the issue calmly and find a healthier resolution. Of course, silence doesn't mean never addressing problems. If someone is being abusive or bullying you, it's not wise to ignore it completely. The key is choosing the right time and way to respond. Maybe staying silent in the heat of the moment is best, because both sides are too upset to communicate clearly. Once things calm down, you can explain how you felt or set firm boundaries. This approach shows emotional maturity, because you're handling conflict on your terms, instead of getting pulled into a heated back and forth. Silence, then, is not a permanent state, but a tool you can use whenever you sense that immediate engagement would only worsen the situation. By waiting until you're calmer, you stand a better chance of resolving the issue without letting anger or hurt spiral out of control. Another significant benefit of silence is how it encourages mindfulness. When we choose not to speak right away, we have time to observe our own thoughts and feelings. We can ask ourselves, am I upset right now because I feel disrespected? Or am I frightened, sad, or disappointed? By naming these emotions and understanding their origins, we gain valuable insight into ourselves. Silence gives us the mental space to see what's really going on inside. This awareness can then guide us in choosing the healthiest response. Maybe after reflecting, you realize that the other person's words touched a deeper insecurity. Understanding that can help you respond more compassionately, both to yourself and to the other person. In this sense, silence doesn't just keep the peace externally, it also fosters personal growth and healing within. By harnessing the power of silence, we also set an example for those around us. In a heated argument or group discussion, emotions can run high. People might talk over each other or trade barbs in quick succession. Yet, when you remain composed and choose not to feed into the negativity, you shift the energy in the room. Sometimes, others pause to reflect because they notice you're not reacting. They might tone down their words, realizing they don't want to argue alone. Over time, this approach can encourage a more respectful atmosphere. Moreover, silence in these tense moments can spark self-reflection in others. They may wonder why you haven't lashed out. This can open the door to calmer, more meaningful conversations later, where genuine understanding becomes possible. Your quiet presence can create a ripple effect of peace. Silence also builds emotional resilience over time. Each moment you resist the urge to snap back, you strengthen your capacity to handle stress and frustration. It's like exercising a muscle. Every time you choose calm over chaos, your emotional endurance grows. Challenges that once made you lose your cool feel easier to manage. Instead of feeling exhausted by constant battles, you become someone who can navigate conflict with grace. This resilience spills over into other parts of your life, making you better equipped to handle unexpected problems or disagreements. You learn that you don't have to fear your own strong emotions because you've practiced the skill of pausing and choosing a mindful response. In this way, the power of silence helps you stay steady, even in the face of storms. Ultimately, silence is a profound act of self-care. By not throwing yourself into every argument or debate, you guard your mental and emotional health. There's a deep sense of liberation in realizing you don't have to engage with every insult or criticism that comes your way. You preserve your energy for the battles that matter, those aligned with your values and worthy of your time. Practicing silence and non-engagement in the Buddhist sense means staying attuned to your inner peace and choosing actions that reflect wisdom rather than impulsive reaction. Over time, you'll notice a shift. You feel calmer, more centered, and less disturbed by external drama. This is the beauty of silence as power. It doesn't silence your voice forever. It simply gives you the gift of choosing how, when, and why you speak. In short, silence can be a mighty tool for emotional stability. It keeps us from fueling negative situations, grants us space to think before reacting, and allows deeper awareness of our feelings. Far from weakness, This kind of silence shines as a symbol of inner strength. By learning to pause and engage only when necessary, we preserve our peace and nurture healthier connections with those around us. 7. Mastering the art of grace. Under pressure. Be unshakable. Mastering the art of grace under pressure is a deeply transformative skill that can dramatically reshape how we experience life. At its core, grace under pressure is about maintaining a calm, centered mindset even when the events around us seem overwhelming. In Buddhism, this quality is often described as equanimity, a mental and emotional balance that remains undisturbed by external turbulence. This sense of inner composure allows us to handle challenges, conflicts, and personal crises with a steadiness that prevents us from being swept away by fear, anger, or despair. When we cultivate grace under pressure, we learn to respond thoughtfully to adversity rather than succumbing to knee-jerk reactions that can lead to regret or additional turmoil. In a world full of stresses and unexpected twists, developing this ability helps us navigate life more peacefully, ensuring that our emotional well-being is not dictated by circumstances beyond our control. Life inevitably presents obstacles that test our resilience, whether it's a disagreement with a loved one, a crisis at work, or a personal setback that shakes our confidence. We might find ourselves at the mercy of anxiety or frustration, with racing thoughts and tense muscles as our bodies prepare to fight or flee. Buddhism teaches that while we may not be able to control every situation, we can always control how we choose to react. The same event can trigger wildly different responses in two individuals. One might become consumed with anger, whereas the other might pause and remain calm. This divergence stems from an internal decision about what to do with the energy that arises in stressful moments. Recognizing that we are the creators of our own experience means accepting that external events do not have to define our emotional state. By remaining graceful under pressure, we resist the pull of chaos and instead choose a path of composure, clarity, and compassion. A key aspect of this practice involves observing our natural reactions when faced with sudden stress. Often, our instinctual response is to let anger, fear, or impatience take over. If someone accuses us of something we didn't do, if a coworker blames us unfairly, or if we receive harsh criticism from a friend, our hearts might pound as our minds flood with defensive thoughts. This is a perfectly human response, shaped by evolutionary biology that urges us to protect ourselves. Yet the teaching of grace under pressure invites us to transform that split-second jolt of tension into an opportunity for mindful action. Instead of lashing out or sinking into despair, we pause, take a breath, and ask ourselves how we can respond in a way that aligns with our values. Even a few seconds of deliberate stillness can shift the trajectory of a conversation or a conflict because it puts us back in the driver's seat of our emotions. One of the most liberating realizations when cultivating grace under pressure is that emotions are temporary. They surge, reach a peak, and then eventually recede. When we treat anger or anxiety as something unending, we unintentionally give it more power. By accepting that an emotion is transitory, we can allow it to flow through us without becoming attached. It's similar to watching storm clouds pass across the sky. We see them, acknowledge their presence, and understand that they will eventually move on. This perspective prevents us from becoming overwhelmed. Instead of letting anger or sorrow define us, we notice it arising and then watch it dissipate. In doing so, we protect our inner stability and open ourselves to more constructive ways of handling the situation. Mindfulness is a cornerstone of this approach. By regularly practicing mindfulness, whether through meditation, contemplative walks, or simply paying closer attention to our thoughts and feelings, We train ourselves to notice the state of our minds and bodies in real time. This heightened awareness allows us to pick up on early signs of agitation. Perhaps we feel tightness in the chest, shallow breathing, or a clenching of the jaw. When we catch these signals, we can intervene before negativity spirals out of control. For instance, in the midst of an argument, noticing a flutter of defensiveness can prompt us to take a slow, deliberate breath instead of launching into an angry reply. Over time, these moments of pause become more natural, and our capacity to remain centered grows stronger. Through consistent mindfulness practice, we become acquainted with our triggers and learn how best to soothe them. Acceptance is another vital component of remaining graceful under pressure. Life does not always unfold according to our preferences. Traffic jams happen, deadlines pile up, misunderstandings occur, and people sometimes disappoint us. Yet, resisting what is already happening only compounds our suffering because it pits us against reality. By accepting that certain things are beyond our control, we free ourselves from unnecessary struggle. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity. Rather, it involves acknowledging that a situation exists in its present form and understanding that our distress arises when we wish it were different. The traffic jam, for example, is not inherently stressful. It becomes so because we want to be somewhere else at that moment. When we accept that we are stuck for the time being, we cease to fight against the reality of the situation. Instead, we can channel our energy toward what we can control, our mindset. This approach minimizes the emotional toll that unexpected challenges can inflict. Compassion is another powerful aspect of grace under pressure, both compassion for ourselves and for those around us. Under stress, people often feel an urge to meet demands perfectly, to maintain composure at all times, or to handle every task without error. This self-imposed pressure can lead to burnout or self-criticism. Granting ourselves compassion means acknowledging that it's natural to feel overwhelmed when life becomes intense. We recognize that it's okay to be human, to have bad days, and to occasionally stumble. By turning a gentle eye inward, we soften the edges of our own stress, allowing ourselves the patience to recover and learn from difficulties. Equally important is extending compassion to others. When someone else is frustrated or upset, responding with empathy can diffuse tension far more effectively than reacting with anger. Acknowledging another person's struggles and showing we understand their perspective fosters an environment of mutual respect. This, in turn, helps keep our own emotional equilibrium intact. Self-sovereignty bolsters our ability to remain graceful under pressure. This concept emphasizes our ultimate power in determining our emotional responses. No matter how stressful or difficult external events become, we retain the freedom to choose how we feel and act. Recognizing our own authority over our internal world prevents us from feeling like powerless victims of circumstance. For instance, when we face a tough deadline at work, we might initially feel panicked or stressed. However, self-sovereignty reminds us that while the deadline itself is non-negotiable, our internal climate is under our control. We can center ourselves with mindfulness, break the workload into manageable chunks, or seek assistance if needed. By taking ownership of our response, we remain the calm center in what might otherwise feel like a whirlwind. Resilience is another key factor that underpins grace under pressure. Life's challenges are inevitable, but how we emerge from them can vary greatly. Some people crumble in the face of adversity, while others appear to grow stronger after each trial. Resilience is the capacity to bounce back and keep moving forward, even when circumstances seem daunting. We can develop resilience through regular practice of mindfulness, acceptance, and equanimity. Each time we weather a stressful situation successfully, we bolster our confidence in our ability to handle the next one. Rather than seeing challenges as threats, we start seeing them as opportunities to build inner fortitude. Over time, our resilience acts like an emotional muscle, one that grows stronger with each use, reinforcing our capacity for grace under even the greatest pressure. Applying these concepts in our daily routines helps them become second nature. For instance, the simple act of pausing and breathing can work wonders. When we notice tension swelling, maybe during a heated discussion or right before giving a big presentation, taking a few deep breaths clears the mental fog. These breaths give us time to process what we're feeling and to remind ourselves that we have the power to choose our next action. Mindfulness practices, whether they're formal seated meditations or short moments of focused attention on the present, likewise sharpen our ability to remain calm. Over time, these small repeated acts of self-awareness add up, preparing us to handle major life hurdles with more composure. We can also reframe our perspective on events we dislike or cannot control. Instead of complaining about an unwanted situation, we can ask ourselves, what can I learn here? Or how might this challenge help me grow? These questions shift our mindset from one of resistance to one of curiosity. By viewing stressful moments as learning opportunities, we strip away some of their power to upset us. Even if an outcome isn't ideal, the mindset of gleaning wisdom transforms each difficulty into a stepping stone. Another practice we can weave into daily life is consciously choosing compassion. Whether it's on a busy commute, in the grocery store line, or during tense discussions, compassion acts like a buffer against agitation. When we see someone acting out of anger, we might recall that they could be experiencing a hard day or personal struggles unknown to us. This doesn't excuse wrongdoing, but it broadens our perspective enough to respond with calm instead of heated judgment. Similarly, we treat ourselves with the same understanding, reminding ourselves that perfection is neither required nor realistic. This gentler approach wards off the cycle of blame and guilt that can accompany stressful moments. All of these strategies dovetail into a single outcome, the capacity to maintain grace under pressure. We become calmer, kinder, and more in control of our internal states, even as life's storms swirl around us. This doesn't mean we never feel stress or sadness. Rather, we learn to navigate those emotions without letting them capsize us. We acknowledge their presence, gather the insights they offer, and guide them toward constructive channels. Over time, we find that what used to overwhelm us no longer has the same hold. We can face heated arguments, looming deadlines, or personal disappointments with a steady core. The process of mastering grace under pressure is ongoing. There is no final destination where we are forever immune to life's trials. Instead, we cultivate this skill little by little, weaving equanimity into the fabric of our daily interactions. Each challenge that arises serves as a new opportunity to refine our practice. Each moment we pause instead of snapping, or respond kindly instead of attacking, adds to our reservoir of inner resilience. Through repetition, these moments accumulate and reshape the way we experience the world. In the end, grace under pressure is an invitation to live more fully in alignment with our highest values. Rather than allowing external chaos to dictate our mood, we ground ourselves in mindfulness, acceptance, compassion, self-sovereignty, and resilience. We view difficulties as pathways to grow, and we learn to remain calm in situations where we once felt powerless. This practice transforms not only our own well-being, but also the tone of our interactions and relationships. By choosing to carry ourselves with composure when tension looms, we send ripples of tranquility outward, encouraging others to do the same. And in those small, everyday acts of steady kindness and measured responses, we exemplify what it truly means to embody grace under pressure. Maintaining grace under pressure is one of the most transformative skills you can develop in life. When unexpected challenges surface, be it conflict with loved ones, workplace stress, or personal setbacks, the ability to remain calm and centered elevates your overall sense of well-being. By practicing emotional resilience, you learn to embrace difficulties instead of fearing them, to see each challenge as an opportunity for growth rather than a dead end. Although you may still experience anger or stress, you no longer allow these emotions to dictate your actions. Instead, you harness them as fuel for growth, directing your energy toward thoughtful responses rather than hasty reactions. Anger is a natural human emotion, yet it can turn destructive if left unchecked. Buddhism offers a pathway to transform this volatile force into something constructive. Through principles like mindfulness and non-attachment, you begin to observe your anger without judgment. This observation creates a subtle but powerful space between the moment you feel provoked and the moment you respond. In that space lies your freedom, your choice to respond with wisdom rather than impulsively. It might involve taking a deep breath, closing your eyes for a moment, or reminding yourself that emotions naturally come and go. Over time, this practice can reshape your relationship with anger, turning it into a motivator for resolving problems peacefully and compassionately. Emotional detachment does not mean you stop caring. On the contrary, it allows you to engage more authentically with others because you no longer act solely out of hurt or fear. By reprogramming your mind to recognize that anger, frustration, and anxiety are passing states, you gradually become less reactive to external provocation. Non-engagement, another vital Buddhist teaching, reinforces this inner stability. Instead of diving into every argument or trying to win every confrontation, you practice discernment. You choose which battles are worth fighting and learn to let go of those that only feed further conflict. This approach not only safeguards your peace, but also preserves valuable mental and emotional energy. Remember that emotional mastery isn't about avoiding negative feelings altogether or becoming some perfect model of tranquility. It's about striving for steady progress. Every time you pause instead of shouting back, every time you reflect instead of blaming, you build resilience. These small victories add up over days, months, and years, creating a calmer, more grounded version of yourself. You'll find that as you advance on this path, your capacity for compassion and empathy expands, both toward yourself and toward others. The result is a sense of freedom, marked by greater self-awareness and reduced stress. If you're eager to continue developing this inner strength and tranquility, stay connected and keep exploring these transformative ideas. Let us be your guiding companion on the journey toward a more peaceful, centered life. Make the conscious choice to cultivate resilience and grace, one mindful step at a time. But if you decide that your happiness depends on your own choices, then it becomes something you can shape every day. You realize that even if someone yells or tries to hurt you with words, you can keep your peace by not letting their negativity take over your thoughts. You learn to handle life's ups and downs with grace, knowing that your inner world belongs to you alone. In the end, self-sovereignty is about honoring the power you've always had. It's about waking up to the fact that no one else can truly get inside your mind and create feelings for you. Yes, people can influence you, but the final decision is yours. Practicing this idea may feel challenging, but each step you take, each time you pause, breathe, and remember you're in control, leads you toward greater emotional freedom. Over time, you'll notice that you bounce back faster from life's little and big troubles. You'll find more stability in tough times, and eventually, you'll stand like a lighthouse in a storm, calm and bright, guiding your own path forward. 4. Energy transmutation. Transform anger into high-vibration power. Imagine you're holding a spark in your hands. That spark can either grow into a wild, damaging fire or help power a bright light that guides you forward. Anger works in a similar way. When it flares up inside of us, it can burn wildly and harm our relationships or sense of peace if we let it. However, in many Buddhist teachings, we learn that anger does not have to be destructive. Instead, we can use this strong emotion like fuel, turning it into something that helps us rather than hurts us. This process is often called energy transmutation, and it's basically about redirecting anger so it raises us up instead of dragging us down. Understanding anger as energy. You might wonder, how is anger a type of energy? Think of a time you felt really mad. Maybe someone took your things without asking, or a friend said something hurtful. You might have felt your heart pound faster, your face get warm, or your muscles tense up. That rush you feel is your body's way of creating a burst of energy. If you were in a dangerous situation, that energy could help you defend yourself or escape. But in everyday life, we often don't need to fight or flee. Instead, the energy can get stuck inside us, making our mind race with upset thoughts. When that happens, anger starts to feel like a heavy weight. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that every emotion, even anger, can be transformed. The idea is to notice our feelings, accept them, and then decide what to do next. By treating anger as energy, we have the option to channel it into something that benefits us, like focusing on a goal, creating art, or solving a problem. It's like turning a rough wave in the ocean into a powerful current that pushes us forward. The first step, recognizing anger. Before we can transform anger, we need to notice it's there. Sometimes anger might show up as a small spark. Maybe we just feel annoyed for a moment. Other times it might seem like a raging fire that's hard to control. In either case, one of the first skills to learn is spotting the signs that you're getting mad. You might feel your hands clench or your breathing get faster. You might notice yourself thinking harsh thoughts, like wanting to yell or blame someone. When you sense anger coming up, pause for a moment and take a slow, deep breath. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Simply naming the emotion, I'm feeling angry, can help you calm down enough to choose a better path. This step is important because it's hard to redirect energy if you don't realize you have it. The second step, accepting the feeling. Once you recognize you're angry, you might be tempted to ignore it or try to shove it away. But pushing feelings down often makes them build up until they burst out later. Instead, try reminding yourself that feeling anger is okay. Emotions, including anger, are natural signals that something inside you needs attention. Perhaps you feel threatened, hurt, or misunderstood. Accepting your anger without judging it can actually help you gain control. It's like saying to yourself, yes, I'm upset right now, and it's all right to have this feeling. In Buddhism, people often practice mindfulness to accept their emotions. Mindfulness means staying aware of what's happening in the present moment without trying to change it or make it go away too quickly. For anger, you can sit quietly and notice where you feel it in your body. Is your chest tight? Are your shoulders tense? Take a few breaths and just observe. By looking at anger this way, you give yourself space to decide what to do next, rather than letting anger boss you around. The third step, redirecting the energy. Now comes the transmutation part, the process of taking the energy that anger brings and turning it into something higher or more positive. If you think of anger like steam, it can power an engine if we direct it correctly.